So in this problem, we have a fullbacker who's running a football due east, 3.9 meters a second. He weighs 94 kilograms. A tackler is coming due west and is going to tackle said fullbacker, and they are going to collide for 0.85 seconds. So we are asked, what is the impulse of the fullbacker initially? Okay, what is the impulse on the fullbacker? What is the tackler's impulse? And what is the force exerted on the tackler? So let's get right into it, shall we? We're going to start with the initial momentum. Geez, why is that so hard for me to think of? So we know that for momentum, that is going to be equal to mass times velocity. And in this case, our mass is 94 kilograms. So we'll say that P is 94 kgs, and that's going to be times our velocity, which is 3.9 meters a second. All right, that leaves our momentum to be, if we just do some simple math here, 94 times 3.9, that is going to be 30, and we should round to 2 sig figs because we have 2 sig figs, 370 Newton seconds. So the reason we say Newton seconds is, notice the units. A Newton is a kilogram meter per second, right? But in this case, that would be the same as saying, since we only have kilograms times meter a second, not a second, we just leave it as newtons times a second. Okay, so the fullbacker here, what is the impulse exerted on that fullbacker? And what is the impulse on the tackler? Before we get to that, it will help us out to find the force first, because we know that impulse is equal to force by a change in time. So I'll write that respectively, right? We're going to notice that these are going to be equal but opposite in signs. Okay, so the force exerted on the tackler here, what is that? Well, we know that we know some equations here, that impulse equals force times some time interval, but we also know that we can rewrite impulse as the change in momentum, right? If I have a ball, for example, and I want it to start moving, its momentum would say, okay, it's a mass times a velocity, but to get it moving on that momentum, we need to apply some force, and we need to apply that force for some time. So we can really say that the force times an interval in time, which is impulse, is really just a change in momentum, right? Because we're applying a force over a time to get that ball to move by some momentum, right? Its momentum here is 0. Its momentum here is some value, say A. Okay, so we can say that delta P is equal to force delta T. Okay, so our change of momentum is equal to the force times some time interval. Okay, so let's just plug in here. We know that we're going from our final momentum to have this guy go to rest is 0. So this is going to make this negative. So this is negative 370 Newton seconds. Okay. And we're going to equal that, so the force times the time interval, which in this case the change in time is 0.85 seconds. We're going to divide it over, and we're going to see that we are going to get negative 370 divided by 0.85. We're going to see that the force applied to the tackler, right, because he's applying a positive force, this guy's going to apply, because of Newton's third law, it says for every force there's an equal and opposite force. He's going to get a force exerted on him of negative 435 newtons, okay? You would want to make this not a negative, right? But because it's just, I was saying a force, but in this case we'll keep it negative for these equations here. So the impulse of the fullbacker, what is that? Well, we know that impulse is equal to that force. Okay, he's applying 435 newtons of force, 435 newtons. Okay, and that's over a 0.85 second interval. That leaves an impulse equal to, if we just do more math here, 435 times 0.85. We are going to see that we have given impulse of 370 Newton seconds. Okay, so now for our tackler here, and let me bring that down. Impulse is equal to, and if we expect there for every impulse and for every force there's an equal and opposite force, if he's applying an impulse of 370 newtons per second and they want to collide and go to 0, the impulse has to be in an opposite direction, right? So the impulses cancel out and they stop, okay? So we would expect this to be a negative 370 newtons, but just to confirm our thinking, we're going to say that negative 435 newtons times that time interval, 0.85 seconds, is equal to impulse, right? He's applying a force this way, the tackler is exerting a force that way, and we're going to see that our impulse here is equal to that. So negative 435 times 0.85. We're going to see that that is negative 370 newtons. So just as we expected, opposite in sign, but equal in magnitude. And that should be in Newton seconds. Very important. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please drop a like, subscribe, anything. That would be great. Have a wonderful day.